Okay, hi guys. So for today's drawing, you will need a pencil, for sketching, and a pen. So preferably a thin pen. For shading, it can be a small fine lining pen or a regular ballpoint pen. It can be any colors as well, but I will be using black. And the reference picture that we will be using today is this car.
Volkswagen.
So everyone can take a picture.
Amherst arrived at St. Jude Children's Research Hospital.
Just as soon as we will.
Everyone can take a picture. So we will be needing a pencil and a thin pen. It can be a fine liner or a ballpoint pen. Any pen with a thin tip is good. So hopefully everybody has a picture of this reference picture. And we will get started. So before you start, we always have to sketch out our reference. And for this class, it can be helpful if you drew it slightly smaller than you would normally, just because we are using pen, and that could be time consuming when it comes to shading. So just make it smaller and more manageable. So for this car drawing, first we're going to need to sketch it out. And like always, we want to break it down into its most basic shapes. So when we look at this car, we first need to figure out its basic proportions. So what I will do is I will separate the window, the top part, the window of the car from the base of the car. So it will probably be helpful if I just drew it out. So if we just break this down into its basic shapes, we can see that this area is like a box. It's like a big box, while the upper area is a smaller box. And this is one way we can break our drawings down to its basic shapes. And when you look at this, the top part is smaller than the bottom. So by how much? The top part is like half of the bottom part. And with this, we can sort of estimate all the proportions when we sketch. So it's like the top part is like half the height of the main body of the car. So with this knowledge, it will make our sketching much easier. So first, I will just sketch out the main body of the car. So because the perspectives of this car is quite irregular, it will take a lot of guessing to know the exact perspectives. So we can honestly just eyeball it. So again, the rules of perspective is that the further away an object is from us, the smaller it will appear. And we can easily do that by making the back of the car smaller than the front. So first, just draw the box that our car is in. This is obviously not going to be the final shape of the car, but it's useful to help us determine the structure of the car. So right now, I just have a rectangular box shape for the bottom of the car. And as you can notice, the lines on two sides are curving upwards. And they will gradually get closer and closer together until they reach their vanishing point on the horizon line. But because of how the car is placed, that horizon line will be very, very far away. Yes, Angela?
No, I just want to let you know that I'm still
Okay.
on holiday. I'm
Okay,
in
that is good.
Aruba. So I'm just watching it. Okay, that's all. Okay,
Yes.
I'm not drawing it. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay, thank you. So the perspective here is very slight, but there is always going to be that difference. So now that we have the base of the car, we can estimate how tall the window, the top of the car, will be. So if we cut this part in half, we can estimate the height for the top of the car. So now I will draw the top of the car in. Like this, about half of the length of the body. So we just have that estimation. And then notice how it's also much smaller, much in terms of length than the body of the car. Like this. So now
Hi.
we have,
Hello. Hi.
hello,
John,
yes.
I don't know why the direction.
Oh, I am sorry, yes.
Okay. Thank you.
How about that? Okay. Hopefully it's good now.
Yeah, it's
So,
good. Thank you.
give
Thanks.
some time to look at it now that it's in the right direction. So now I've just simplified the entire shape of the car into these two boxes. The one on the bottom is much bigger, and the one on top is roughly about half the width of the body of the car. So you can use this for most cars. They have roughly the same proportions. So by having this, we can ensure that the proportions of the cars will be accurate once we start carving out the shape of the car from these two boxes. So I will give everyone some more time to reach this stage. So hopefully everyone has this. So although the difference is slight, hopefully you can see that the front of the car is bigger than the back, since the back is further away. So these are stuff you can you can be looking out for when drawing, because it can make a very big difference in how realistic your drawing will look. So from this, we can start carving out the shape of the car. So first, I will indicate the location of the wheels. So the wheels are about more than half, like a little bit above the halfway point of the bottom box. So we can draw a line to indicate where our wheels will end. So I will draw in a circle near the very front for our front wheel, like this. And if you look, if we just look at the car, we can see that the front wheel and the back wheel are about 3 wheels apart. So we can try to estimate that like this, but make sure the intervals get smaller as we go back, which means our last wheel will be about here. And it is okay if, when you're drawing, something goes out of the shape, because in the end, this is just our sketch. What's important is once we start locating the details. So this is where I've placed the 2 wheels. Hopefully everyone is at this step. So if we look at the bottom of the car, so like the silver edge here, it's about a little bit below the halfway of the wheel. So just a little bit below it. And it also is the same for the front of the car. So we can just find the center point and go a little bit below it to find the bottom of the car, like this. And we can also curve it into the front, like this. So hopefully everyone is at this step. So before we continue, most cars, when you look at it from the front, they are symmetrical on both the left side and the right side, which is why it's very important for us to find the center line of the car. So with the center line, it can help us ensure that both sides of the car are indeed symmetrical. So if you can remember from perspectives, one way to find the center line of a shape with four equal of a square shape, square-like shape with four right angles is by drawing lines across, and that will determine the center point. So we can do that by lightly drawing two lines across from opposite angles, and that helps us get the center line, and then we can draw that down. Repeat the steps for the upper part of the car, like this, and then you can connect the two. So hopefully everyone has that. And with that, we can continue on with our car. So with the center line, we want to start drawing the front of the car. So the front of the car is curved. So we want to follow the center line. And draw in the curve, like this. And with the center, we can start drawing in the two sides. So from this corner, we'll draw another curve to the left side of the center line. And then we can draw the other side. Like this. And then on opposite sides of this middle section will be the two headlights. So we can draw those in. And then we can draw the areas above the wheel that curves around to the front and around the headlight, like this. And also to the other side, like that. And sorry, everyone, I will just have to leave for a few minutes. Hopefully that will give you guys some time to catch up. I will continue very soon. Okay, I am back. So continuing with the car, we will now draw in the silver edges along the base of the car. So just above the base of the car. We can draw in like that. And then we will continue it along the side of the car. We can also draw in the part above the back wheel of the car. And just know that because we're only drawing in the outlines of the car, we are not really able to capture the contour of the car. And that's where our pens will come in handy later. Now that we have this area of the car drawn in, we can start moving upwards. First, we have to mark the edge between the car door and the car window. So there's also this silver line separating them, and we can draw them from going from here, drawing a curved line, all the way down to here. And then we can draw in the lines on the two sides of the car door. And the handle at the top left corner. So this is what we have so far. So with that, we can start drawing in the top part of the car. So the front windshield of the car extends from this line on the car door. And we can just sketch in a little slanted line like this. And this is not quite the top of the car, but we can draw in a line parallel to our box and then curve it down all the way to the center of the back wheel part. Now we can also draw in the other side of the windshield, like this. And then connect the two parts with a slightly curved line, still staying within the box that we created earlier, like that. With everything we've drawn so far, we can start cleaning up our page by erasing most of the structure lines. So make sure not to erase any of the car areas of the car. Only erase the box as well as the guidelines within the box. So erase as carefully as you can. If you erase parts of the car, that's fine. We can still restore it. So erase the guidelines until you're left with just the car. You can take your time, go slowly, and we'll give everyone time to catch up while I restore parts of the car. So hopefully everyone is at this step. I'll give everyone some more time. So if you have reached this step, this car is a very complex shape, but hopefully you know how important it is to really observe your reference picture and try to find easier ways to draw, like referencing the different parts of the cars for ratios. So now that we have this, we can draw in our front windshield. So it takes up most of the front part of the car. With rounded edges. And then we can draw in the rear view mirrors. So one on the right side. And the other one in front on this side, like that. So now we can draw in our side windows. So the two windows are separated by a line coming from the middle of coming from the line for our car door. So just extend that line to the top, slightly slanted due to the curvature of the car. And then draw in the two windows. And the one in front has a line down like that. So with this, we can start adding in some of the details, like the tread of the car. So draw a small line extending from the bottom of the car, parallel to the front of the car, and then draw in the curve. And then you have the front of the car, the front of the wheels. And we also need to draw in the other wheel. So just draw in a half circle shape like this. And then we have to draw the inside of the wheels. So notice how the inside of the wheels are not completely flat. It curves inwards and then up and then inwards and then up. Same with the other side. So we need to make sure we capture that. First, we want to draw a smaller circle within our wheel. So basically the same shape, just smaller. This separates the outside of the tire from the inside. Do the same with the other tire, like that. And then we want to draw the inside circle of the tire, but we can't draw it dead center, or else the tire will look like a flat surface. We want to draw it a little bit to the right. So like it's not center, it's to the right. This will help with the general contour of the car and the tires. So like this. And for the back wheel, it is also to the right. This one is even more to the right. Like this. Now, we'll add the rest of the details. For example, these two smaller lights on the front of the car. As well as the hood over the headlights. Like this. And also this little bump at the front of the car. So this is what your final sketch should look like. So if you are at this stage, you can take out your fine liner or pen, whatever pen that you have. And start lining the entire drawing before we start with our shading. So just go slowly while you line everything with pen. Definitely want to be careful with pen. Just do your best to try to be careful while fine lining with a pen. Don't be scared to make mistakes. Fine lining is never the last step, so you don't have to worry about making it look perfect, because rarely is it ever going to look perfect. Just try your best to make steady lines. So I've finished lining the car. I will give everyone some more time to do this. I will just give it some time for the ink to dry. You can add in any details that you missed during sketch, like this windshield wiper. If you are done, however, you can take your eraser and just erase all of the pencil marks. You might want to wait a little bit before erasing, just in case your ink hasn't fully dried yet. But if it is, you can erase it and hopefully you're left with a pen drawing of a car. I'm just gonna add some more lines that I have missed. So erase all pencil lines. And just before we start with our shading, we can look at type of the methods that we can use to shade. So if you were here last class, you would have seen the wolf drawing. So for that one, we could be really random with our lines because the reference picture is a wolf, so we could easily just follow all of his fur. But when you look at solid objects like a car, these objects with smooth surfaces, there is there's no specific way to tell how to shade, like which way your pen strokes should go, except for the contour of the car. So with the wolf, we follow the direction of the fur, but with the object like this car, we need to follow the contour of the car, like the curvature of the car's different surfaces. And by following our pen strokes in the direction, in the curves of these surfaces, we can make a very realistic drawing. So I will just demonstrate. So one way to shade is a method. The most basic method of shading is called hatching. So you may or may not have heard of hatching. Hatching is just the method of shading by using parallel lines tightly together, all in one direction. This is hatching. Cross-hatching is when you have two different sets of hatchings that are going in different directions. But what cross contour is when you look at a sphere and you try to shade it, you have to follow the direction of the curve, like this. So my lines are following the curve of the circle. The same goes with the other directions. So this is cross contour, while this is cross hatching. You always just hatch in the same direction, and then another one in a different direction. And you can kind of see the difference it makes. One, you can clearly see the curve of the circle. So this is very helpful to make when shading realistic surfaces. The other one, the shading appears more 2D. So for the car, we are going to be using the cross contour method. So just before we start, one very helpful way to determine the direction to shade is by drawing out these contour maps. So for example, this part above the wheel, I'm going to use a pencil here, is curved. So we draw in these curves like that. I'm drawing in this curve. I'm also drawing in the vertical lines like that. The same can be done to the front of the car, like this. So we're just showing the curves of the different surfaces in the car. And these are pretty extreme curves. while this part, the side of the car, is less curved. So it's almost just straight. Like that. You might not be able to get this correctly in the first try, and that is completely fine. This does take a lot of observing to get the hang of. You can also do it for smaller areas, like this little silver area at the front. So if you don't have this yet, you can try your best to copy it down, and hopefully it will help when we actually start the shading. So I've just marked in all of the contour lines on this car to show how curved these surfaces are. My lines are also just a guess from my own observations, so some parts might not be correct, but that is fine. So just copy these down using a pencil.
Sean, it's very, very nice. I will when I go home. I will try it. It's on the YouTube, right?
Yes, it's all being streamed on YouTube.
And are you going to color it afterwards?
No, but we will be shading it with a pen.
Shading it. Oh, I see. Okay. Yeah. It's very nice.
Thank you. I'm glad you are watching from your vacation.
Yeah. I'm using the L paint mode, and then I got the resort in with Wi-Fi, so I can be able to use it.
That's good. Yeah. So hopefully everyone is in this step. Then I will start showing everyone how to shade using cross contour. So I will start by shading this area right above our wheel here. Let me just change these. So I will start shading here. Notice how there's a streak of light over it. We will have to ignore that area. We will have to leave it blank, but I'm just starting to shade following the curvature. of the car. Try not to use broken lines. Try to make your lines try to make very long and continuous lines. And now it's curving the other direction. Like this. You can also make darker lines thicker, like that. And it's not cross contour until we start a little bit of shading in the other direction. Like this. I will also fill in the areas that are completely dark. Although this step can wait, you don't have to worry about this too much. And it might be helpful to use a thicker pen to fill in these areas. For the sake of time, I will just use a thicker pen so I can continue to demonstrate. If you're having trouble keeping up, just know that it's being streamed on YouTube. You can always check out parts that you may have missed on YouTube. So we already marked the contour lines here. So just pick one direction to start first, and then for the areas you need to darken, just move on to the other direction, and that will become the cross part in cross contour. So continue. Just taking your time. Again, since we are unable to control value using the weight of our pen, unlike with pencils, we can only darken areas by layering more and more pen. So the darker parts, you want to add more cross contour, while the lighter parts, you want to have less. And for the parts that are very bright, you want to just leave it blank to create that contrast. And then I'm just going to go ahead and fill in the areas that are completely dark. If your card doesn't look good the first time, that is completely fine. This is a fairly difficult medium to grasp. And I will just continue on. So it's mostly just about carefully observing the reference picture. So I will finish up now, about right now. So there's still a lot more details that could be added, but this is just the shading of most of the surfaces on this car. So hopefully you were able to finish at least some contouring, some cross contours on this car. If you have any parts that you missed that you want to revisit, you can always go to the YouTube channel and find this drawing. But I will end today's class now. If you want to take a picture of this drawing, you can. If you have any questions, you can also ask me.